Most of humanity lives in a state of perpetual waiting. They wait for conditions to change, for circumstances to improve, for others to recognize their worth, for the external world to somehow magically rearrange itself to match their desires. But I tell you now with complete certainty born of experience that this waiting is the very thing that keeps you bound to your present limitations. The external world is nothing more than a reflection of your internal states of consciousness. And until you learn to assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, that external world will continue to mirror back to you exactly what you have always been. The art of assumption is the most practical thing in the world. It is not mysticism, though it may seem mystical to those who have never practiced it. It is not magic, though its results may appear magical to those who witness them. It is simply the natural law of consciousness operating through the medium of human imagination. When you truly understand what it means to assume your new identity, when you actually feel yourself to be what you desire to be, the whole vast world must reshape itself to confirm your assumption. But let me be clear about what assumption really means. For this word has been so diluted by casual usage that its true power has been forgotten. To assume is not to pretend. To assume is not to hope or wish or desire. To assume is to actually take upon yourself the mental and emotional state of already being what you want to be. It is to feel so completely identified with your desired state that there is no longer any sense of separation between you and it. When you have truly assumed your new identity, you do not think about it. You do not work toward it. You do not hope for it. You simply are it. This is where most people fail in their attempts to transform their lives. They try to assume while still maintaining their old identity. They attempt to feel wealthy while still feeling poor, to feel loved while still feeling rejected, to feel successful while still carrying the consciousness of failure. This creates an internal contradiction that cancels out the power of assumption. You cannot assume your new identity while holding on to your old one. The assumption of the new must be so complete that the old simply ceases to exist in your consciousness. The foundation of all successful assumption lies in understanding that consciousness is the only reality. Everything you see, everything you experience, everything that appears to have solid existence in the world around you is nothing more than consciousness pushed out into manifestation. Your body, your environment, your relationships, your circumstances, all of these are simply external reflections of states of consciousness that you have assumed, either consciously or unconsciously, either deliberately or by default. When you begin to grasp this truth, you realize that changing your external conditions is not a matter of manipulating the world around you. It is a matter of changing the consciousness from which you are operating. And the way you change consciousness is through the disciplined practice of assumption. You must learn to feel yourself into the state of being that corresponds to your fulfilled desire. And you must maintain that feeling with such consistency and intensity that it becomes your natural state of being. The secret lies in understanding that your imagination is not separate from reality. Your imagination is the creative power of God operating through you. When you imagine yourself to be what you desire to be, when you feel it so vividly that it becomes real to you, you are not engaging in fantasy. You are engaging in the fundamental creative act by which all things come into existence. Everything that exists was first imagined. Everything that you see in the world around you was once nothing more than an imaginable act in someone's consciousness. But imagination without feeling is powerless. You can imagine yourself wealthy 1,000 times. But if you do not feel wealthy, if you do not assume the emotional state of wealth, your imagination remains barren. The feeling is the secret. The feeling is what breathes life into your imaginal act and transforms it from mere fantasy into creative power. When you can imagine yourself in possession of your desire and feel the reality of that possession, you have set in motion the forces that must inevitably bring that desire into manifestation. This is why I emphasize again and again the importance of living from the end. Do not live in hope of your desire's fulfillment. Do not live in expectation of its coming. Live from the assumption that it is already yours. Live from the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you live from the end, you collapse time. You bring the future into the present moment and make it your current reality. The external world may take time to catch up with your assumption, but in consciousness, the transformation is instantaneous. Let me tell you exactly how to practice this art of assumption. First, you must become very clear about what you want to be. Not what you want to have, not what you want to do, but what you want to be. For being is the foundation of having and doing. If you want wealth, You must assume the identity of a wealthy person. If you want love, you must assume the identity of a person who is deeply loved. If you want success, you must assume the identity of a successful person. The having and the doing will follow naturally from the being. Once you have identified the identity you wish to assume, you must construct a scene that would imply the fulfillment of your desire. This scene should be simple, natural, and involve some action on your part. If you wish to assume the identity of a successful business owner, you might construct a scene where you are signing an important contract or addressing your employees. If you wish to assume the identity of a happily married person, you might construct a scene where you are wearing a wedding ring and someone is congratulating you on your marriage. The key to making your scene effective is to make it sensory vivid. You must see what you would see, hear what you would hear, feel what you would feel if your desire were already fulfilled. But most importantly, you must capture the feeling of fulfillment. You must feel the satisfaction, the joy, the sense of completion that would be yours if your desire were already realized. This feeling is the soul of your assumption, and without it, your technique becomes nothing more than empty mental exercise. Now comes the discipline that separates those who succeed from those who fail. You must return to this scene again and again, particularly in that drowsy state just before sleep when your conscious mind relaxes its guard and your subconscious becomes most receptive to impression. Night after night, you must feel yourself into this scene until it becomes more real to you than your present circumstances. You must persist in this assumption until it becomes your natural state of consciousness. This persistence is absolutely crucial, for your subconscious mind is habituated to your old identity. It has been maintaining your current reality for years, perhaps decades, and it will not easily surrender its familiar patterns. You must be more persistent in assuming your new identity than your subconscious is in maintaining your old one. You must return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled with such consistency and intensity that your subconscious has no choice but to accept it as your new reality. During this period of gestation, you may find that your external circumstances seem to contradict your assumption. You may be assuming wealth while your bank account remains empty. You may be assuming love while you remain alone. You may be assuming success while you face apparent failure. This is the test of your faith, the trial of your assumption. You must not let appearances shake your conviction. You must remember that the external world is always the last to change, and you must maintain your assumption regardless what your senses report. This is where most people abandon their assumption. They allow the evidence of their senses to override the testimony of their imagination. They forget that consciousness is the only reality and that all external conditions are simply shadows cast by their states of consciousness. They return to their old identity because it seems more real, more solid, more supported by evidence. But I tell you that the evidence of your senses is the least reliable guide to truth. Your senses can only report what has already been created by consciousness. They cannot reveal what consciousness is in the process of creating. The man or woman who would successfully assume a new identity must learn to live by faith rather than by sight. Faith is not belief in the impossible. Faith is loyalty to your unseen reality. It is fidelity to your assumption despite all appearances to the contrary. When you have faith in your assumption, when you remain loyal to your new identity, regardless of what your present circumstances may suggest, you demonstrate the quality of consciousness that inevitably manifests as change conditions. But let me address a common misunderstanding about assumption. Some believe that to assume effectively, they must deny present circumstances or pretend that their current problems do not exist. This is not true assumption. True assumption does not require you to deny any facts. It requires you to transcend them. You can acknowledge your present circumstances while simultaneously assuming your new identity. The key is to give greater reality to your assumption than to your present conditions. Think of it this way. An actor on stage may be playing the role of a king, but he does not deny that he is actually a common man. He simply gives greater reality to his role than to his personal circumstances for the duration of the performance. In the same way, you can acknowledge your present circumstances while giving greater reality to your assumed identity. You live from your assumption while passing through your present conditions. The power of assumption becomes even more evident when you understand that you are always assuming something. Every moment of every day, you are maintaining some identity, some sense of who and what you are. The question is not whether you will assume, but what you will assume. Most people assume by default. They accept the identity that has been given to them by their circumstances, their upbringing, their past experiences. They assume limitation because limitation has been their experience. They assume lack because lack has been their reality. But you have the power to assume by design. You can consciously choose the identity you wish to embody. You can deliberately select the state of consciousness from which you wish to operate. This is your divine prerogative, your God-like power. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are not bound by your past. You are not limited by what others believe about you, but what you have believed about yourself. You are the operant power in your world, and assumption is your method of operation. When you begin to assume consciously and deliberately, you discover that the world is far more malleable than you ever imagined. People change their attitude toward you. Opportunities appear where none existed before. Resources become available that were previously beyond your reach. The very fabric of your reality reshapes itself to accommodate your new assumption. This is not coincidence. This is not luck. This is the natural law of consciousness manifesting through your assumption. But remember that assumption is an art that requires practice. Like any skill, it improves with repetition. Your first attempts may feel awkward, artificial, unnatural. This is normal. You have been assuming your old identity for so long that it feels natural, while your new assumption feels foreign. But persist in your practice. Continue to return to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Day by day, your new assumption will become more natural, more automatic, more spontaneous. As you persist in your assumption, you will notice subtle changes beginning to occur. Your thoughts will begin to align with your new identity. Your words will begin to reflect your assumed state. Your actions will begin to flow from your new consciousness. You will find yourself naturally behaving as the person you have assumed yourself to be. This is the beginning of manifestation, the first sign that your assumption is taking root in your consciousness. The more completely you assume your new identity, the more quickly it will manifest in your experience. Half-hearted assumption produces half-hearted results. Occasional assumption produces occasional results. But complete, persistent, unwavering assumption produces inevitable results. When you assume so completely that you no longer think of yourself as assuming, when your new identity becomes so natural that you forget you ever were anything else, manifestation becomes automatic. This is the state of consciousness that I call living from the wish fulfilled. You are no longer working toward your desire. You are no longer hoping for its fulfillment. You are living as though it is already yours, because in consciousness it is already yours. This is the end of struggle, the end of effort, the end of trying to make things happen. When you live from the wish fulfilled, things happen through you rather than by you. Many people resist this teaching because it seems to place all responsibility on their shoulders. They prefer to believe that their circumstances are beyond their control, that they are victims of forces larger than themselves. But I tell you that this responsibility is not a burden. It is the greatest gift you could ever receive. It means that you are not powerless. It means that you are not dependent on others for your happiness, your success, your fulfillment. It means that you have within yourself the power to create any life you can imagine. The moment you truly accept this responsibility, the moment you fully embrace your power as the operant consciousness in your world, everything changes. You stop looking outside yourself for salvation. You stop waiting for conditions to improve. You stop hoping that others will change. You turn within and begin the work of assumption, the work of becoming who you want to be rather than remaining who you have been. This work of assumption is not always easy, but it is always simple. It requires no special knowledge, no particular talent, no external resources. It requires only your willingness to feel yourself into the state of your fulfilled desire and to persist in that feeling until it becomes your natural state of consciousness. Every person has this ability. Every person can learn this art. The only question is whether you will have the persistence to practice it until it becomes second nature. The transformation that assumption can produce in your life is beyond anything you can currently imagine. I have seen the poorest become wealthy, the loneliest find love. The sickest become healthy, the most unsuccessful achieve their greatest dreams. I have witnessed these transformations not once or twice, but hundreds of times in the lives of ordinary people who learn to assume extraordinary identities. But perhaps more importantly, I have experienced this transformation in my own life. I have proven the power of assumption not just in theory but in practice. I have lived from the wish fulfilled and watched as my entire world rearranged itself to match my assumption. This is not something I believe. This is something I know. This is something I have lived. And now I pass this knowledge to you, not as mere information, but as living truth. You have within you the same power that has created every great achievement in human history. You have within you the same consciousness that has manifested every beautiful thing you have ever admired. The only difference between you and those who have achieved what you desire is that they learn to assume the identity of achievement. While you have continued to assume the identity of limitation, tonight I challenge you to begin the practice of assumption. Choose the identity you wish to embody. Construct the scene that implies its fulfillment. Feel yourself into that scene with all the vividness and intensity you can muster. Return to it again and again until it becomes more real to you than your present circumstances. Persist in this assumption until it becomes your natural state of consciousness. Do not be discouraged if results do not appear immediately. Remember that consciousness is like a garden. You plant the seed of your assumption. You water it with persistent feeling and you wait for it to bear fruit. Some seeds sprout quickly, others take longer to germinate. But if you maintain the proper conditions, if you continue to nourish your assumption with feeling, if you protect it from the weeds of doubt and fear, it will inevitably manifest in your experience. The law of assumption is impersonal. It works for everyone who applies it correctly, regardless of their background, their education, their circumstances, their past failures or successes. It is not a reward for the good or a punishment for the bad. It is simply the way consciousness operates. When you assume something to be true about yourself, consciousness has no choice but to manifest evidence of that assumption in your experience. This means that you are always demonstrating the law, whether you know it or not. Your present circumstances are the perfect reflection of what you have been assuming about yourself, consciously or unconsciously. If you do not like your present circumstances, do not blame others or fate or chance. Look within and ask yourself what you have been assuming. What identity have you been maintaining? What feeling have you been carrying about yourself in your life? When you identify the assumption that has been creating your unwanted circumstances, you can immediately begin to change it. You can consciously choose a new assumption, a new identity, a new feeling about yourself. This is your power, your prerogative, your divine inheritance. You are not bound by what you have been. You are free to become what you choose to be. The time for transformation is now, not tomorrow, not when conditions improve, not when you feel more confident or more prepared. Now, this very moment, you can begin to assume the identity you desire. This very moment, you can begin to feel yourself to be what you want to be. This very moment, you can begin to live from the wish fulfilled. Remember that assumption is not a one-time event, but a way of life. It is not something you do occasionally when you want something specific. It is something you do constantly, moment by moment, day by day. You are always assuming something about yourself. The question is whether you will assume consciously or unconsciously, deliberately or by default. Choose to assume consciously. Choose to assume deliberately. Choose to assume the highest and best that you can imagine for yourself. Do not settle for mediocrity when greatness is available to you. Do not accept limitation when freedom is your birthright. Do not remain in lack when abundance is the natural state of consciousness. Your new identity awaits your assumption. Your fulfilled desire awaits your feeling. Your transformed life awaits your persistence. All the power you need is already within you. All the knowledge you require has been given to you tonight. The only thing that remains is your decision to apply what you have learned. Will you continue to live from your old identity, or will you assume your new one? Will you continue to hope and wish and want, or will you begin to live from the wish fulfilled? Will you remain bound by appearances, or will you exercise your power as the operant consciousness in your world? The choice is yours, and it is a choice you must make not once, but every moment of every day. Each time you think about yourself, each time you feel into your identity, each time you assume something about your nature and your life, you are choosing who you will be and what you will experience. Choose wisely. Choose boldly. Choose with the full knowledge that you are the creator of your own experience, the author of your own story, the artist of your own life. Assume the identity that will create the life you truly desire. Feel yourself to be what you want to be. Live from the wish fulfilled. This is the great secret, the ultimate truth, the final revelation. You are not who you think you are. You are who you assume yourself to be. Change your assumption and you change your world. Assume your new identity and watch as everything in your life transforms to match that assumption. The power is yours. The choice is yours. The time is now. Assume your new identity and live from thee fulfilled. For this is your destiny, your purpose, your divine calling. This is the way to freedom, to fulfillment, to the complete realization of your infinite potential. Go forth and assume. Go forth and feel. Go forth and live from the end. Your new life begins the moment you truly embrace your new identity. Your transformation begins the moment you feel yourself to be what you have always wanted to be. Your wish is fulfilled the moment you assume that it is. This is the truth that sets you free. This is the knowledge that transforms your world. This is the power that makes all things possible. Use it wisely. Use it persistently. Use it with a complete conviction that consciousness is the only reality and that assumption is your created power. Your new identity awaits. Your wish fulfilled beckons. Your transformed life calls to you from the dimension of consciousness where it already exists in perfect completion. Step into that consciousness. Assume that identity. Live from that fulfillment. This is your birthright, your power, your destiny. The law is simple. The practice is clear. The results are inevitable. Assume your new identity and live from the wish fulfilled. For in the realm of consciousness, all things are possible to him who believes. And believing is simply assuming that what you desire is already yours in the only reality that truly matters, the reality of consciousness itself. That power that created and sustains all things is not outside of you, it is within you. It is your consciousness, your awareness of being. The universe cannot say no to you because the universe is not separate from you. You are the universe expressing itself as a human being, having a temporary human experience. Tonight I want to share with you the secret of effective prayer. Prayer is not begging or beseeching an external deity. Prayer is the art of assuming the feeling of your wish fulfilled. When you know how to ask properly, there is no power that can say no to your request. Let me share with you a passage from Scripture that reveals this truth. In the book of Mark 11:24, we read, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours." The secret lies in these words. Believe that you have received it. You must first assume the feeling of already having what you desire before it can manifest in your world. Most people are constantly asking from a state of lack and wondering why their prayers go unanswered. They pray and affirm but remain in the same state of consciousness that does not have what they are seeking. This is the fundamental error. To ask in such a way that the universe cannot say no. You must ask from the state of fulfillment, not from the state of desire. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret and the art of successful prayer. Let me illustrate this principle with a simple example. If you desire financial abundance, do not pray by saying, "God, please give me more money," or "Universe, I need financial freedom." This is asking from lack, and your very prayer is a confession of your current state of poverty. Instead, you must assume the feeling of already being financially abundant. How would you feel if you were already financially free? What thoughts would occupy your mind? How would you carry yourself? What conversations would you have when you assume the feeling of financial abundance? When you sleep in the assumption that you are now financially free, you are asking in such a way that the universe cannot say no. For the universe can only reflect back to you your own conception of yourself. Remember the words of the prophet Isaiah, "Before they call, I will answer." This is a profound psychological and spiritual truth. Before you call, before you ask, the answer is already prepared. Your assumption, your state of consciousness, determines what you will call for and consequently what will be answered. I recall a gentleman who attended one of my lectures in New York. He approached me afterward and said, "Mr. Godard, I have been praying for a promotion in my company for 3 years with no results." I asked him, "How do you pray?" He described a process of visualization where he would see himself being congratulated, receiving a new title and a higher salary. But I asked, "What is the feeling you embody after this visualization?" He confessed that he returned to feeling frustrated that it hadn't happened yet. I told him, "You are undoing your prayer with your subsequent feeling state. You must not only visualize the end result, but also sleep in the conviction that it is done." I suggested that he assume the feeling of already having received the promotion before going to sleep each night. Within 2 weeks, he received not just a promotion, but a position 2 levels higher than he had initially sought. This is the law, and it never fails. But you must understand that your conscious assumption, though false to your senses if persisted in, will harden into fact. The time it takes for your assumption to become fact depends on the naturalness of the feeling. How deeply are embracing the new state. Now there is another aspect to asking in such a way that the universe cannot say no, and that is detachment. Many of you have heard of the importance of detachment in manifestation, but detachment is often misunderstood. Detachment does not mean not caring about your desire. It means complete faith that it is already yours in the spiritual realm and must by law materialize in the physical realm. True detachment comes from the conviction that what you have assumed in consciousness is already a fact in the spiritual realm, which is the realm of causation. The physical realm is merely the realm of effects. Cause always precedes effect. Your consciousness is the cause. Your world is the effect. Let me share with you another example to illustrate this principle. A young woman came to me in despair over her marriage. Her husband had left her for another woman, and all logical evidence suggested that the marriage was over. I asked her if she truly wanted her husband back, and she confirmed with tears in her eyes that she did. I told her, "Your task is simple but not easy. You must assume that your husband has returned and that your marriage is more harmonious than ever before. You must live from the end. When you go to sleep at night, feel the joy and gratitude of having your husband back. Feel his presence beside you in bed. Hear his voice expressing his love for you. Feel the wedding ring on your finger. Do this with conviction, and the universe cannot say no." She practiced this faithfully for 3 weeks. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, unexpectedly, her husband called. They met for coffee, which led to dinner, and within a month, he had moved back home. But here's the interesting part. He told her that during those 3 weeks, he couldn't stop thinking about her. He felt inexplicably drawn back to her, despite his logical mind telling him to stay away. This is how the law works. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are exercising the divine power within you, which is your imagination, and your imagination, sustained with conviction, will externalize itself in your physical reality. I want to emphasize that this is not mere positive thinking or wishful thinking. This is the application of an immutable spiritual law. The Bible calls it faith. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is the feeling of possession of the things desired. Faith is coming from a state of knowing, not hoping or wishing. Now let us delve deeper into the mechanics of this process. How exactly do you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled? It begins with a decision. You must decide what you want to be, to have, or to experience. Be specific. Be clear. Then you must construct a scene in your imagination that implies the fulfillment of your desire. For instance, if you desire a new home, create a scene where a friend is congratulating you on your beautiful new home. Feel their handshake or embrace. Hear their voice. Smell the freshness of your new space. Feel the emotion of pride and gratitude for having your new home. This scene, if constructed with sensory vividness and emotional intensity, and if persisted in until it takes on the tone of reality, will materialize in your physical world. This is asking in such a way that the universe cannot say no, because you are not asking in the traditional sense at all. You are claiming, you are appropriating, you are assuming, you are exercising your divine right as a creator made in the image of God. I must stress that this principle applies to every area of your life: health, wealth, relationships, career, spiritual growth, and more. There is no limit to what you can achieve through the proper application of your imagination. Consider the case of physical healing. If you are experiencing illness or physical discomfort, the conventional approach is to focus on the problem, to fight against it, to see it as an enemy to be conquered. But this keeps you locked in the consciousness of illness. Instead, assume the feeling of being perfectly healthy. Feel the energy coursing through your body. Feel the joy of pain-free movement. Feel the gratitude for your robust health. This feeling state persisted in will manifest as physical well-being. I recall a woman who had been diagnosed with a chronic condition that doctors said was incurable. She came to me in desperation, having exhausted all medical options. I taught her this principle of assuming the feeling of her wish fulfilled. I instructed her to go to sleep each night in the assumption of perfect health, to feel the joy and gratitude of being completely healed. Within 3 months, she returned to her doctor for a checkup, and to the doctor's astonishment, there was no trace of the condition. The doctor called it a spontaneous remission, a medical miracle. But it was no miracle in the sense of a violation of natural law. It was the perfect operation of the law of assumption. She had changed her concept of herself, and her body reflected that new concept. Now, some of you may be thinking, but Wayne, what about the time gap? What about the waiting period between my assumption and its manifestation in the physical world? This is where most people falter. They cannot sustain the faith through the interval of time. They begin to doubt, to question, to look for results, and in doing so, they revert to the old state of consciousness, the state of lack. The key is to understand that time is merely a psychological construct, a measurement of the interval between events. In the realm of spirit, in the realm of consciousness, there is no time. Your desire is already fulfilled the moment you assume the feeling of its fulfillment. The time it takes to materialize in the physical realm is determined by various factors, including the naturalness of the state to you and the degree to which you persist in the new state. Do not be concerned with the how. The universe, God, your own wonderful human imagination will take care of the how. Your job is to remain faithful to the end, to the state of fulfillment. As you do this, the bridge of incidents will form naturally to lead you to the physical realization of your desire. Let me give you another example to illustrate this point. A man desired to travel to a foreign country but lacked the financial means to do so. Instead of focusing on the lack of money, he began to assume the feeling of already being in that country. Each night before sleep, he would imagine smelling the distinct aromas of that country's cuisine, hearing the local language being spoken, seeing the famous landmarks, and feeling the unique texture of the local fabrics. He persisted in this assumption for several weeks. Then, out of the blue, he received a call from a company that was expanding into that very country. They had seen his resume online and wanted to interview him for a position that would require him to relocate there. Not only would they cover his travel expenses, but they would also provide a salary that far exceeded what he was currently earning. Was this a coincidence? There are no coincidences in a universe governed by law. It was the perfect externalization of his internal state. He had asked in such a way that the universe could not say no. I must also address a question that often arises. What about the desires of others? What if my desire conflicts with someone else's? This stems from a misunderstanding of the nature of consciousness. Consciousness is one, although it appears to be many. There is only one God, one imagination expressing itself through countless human forms. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are not imposing your will on another. You are simply attracting to yourself to circumstances, people, and events that match your state of consciousness. Everyone is you pushed out. The world is yourself pushed out. What you see in others is a reflection of your own consciousness. If you want to change your world, change your concept of yourself. As within, so without. This is the ancient Hermetic principle, and it is as true today as it was thousands of years ago. Now I want to share with you a technique that I have found particularly effective in assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. It is the technique of revision. Revision is the art of mentally rewriting a past event to align with your desired outcome. By revising the past, you are actually recreating your future, because the future is a projection of your past beliefs and assumptions. For example, if you had a disagreement with a colleague at work, instead of carrying the negative energy of that encounter, revise it in your imagination. See the conversation going harmoniously. Feel the mutual respect and understanding. Hear the words of agreement and cooperation. By revising the past event, you are changing your state of consciousness and consequently your future interactions with that person. Revision can be applied to any past event that continues to affect your present state of consciousness negative. By mentally rewriting these events, you are asking in such a way that the universe cannot say no. Another powerful technique is the use of affirmative prayer, or what I call imaginative assertion. Unlike traditional prayer, which often takes the form of petition or supplication, affirmative prayer is the declaration of what is already true in spirit. It is claiming what is already yours by divine right. For instance, instead of saying, "God, please heal my body," say with conviction, "I am whole, perfect, strong, powerful, loving, harmonious, and happy." Feel the truth of these words. Embody them. Let them permeate your consciousness until they become your dominant state. This is asking in such a way that the universe cannot say no, because you are not asking from a place of lack or need. You are affirming the truth of your being, the truth of who you really are. I want to emphasize that the techniques that visualization, revision, affirmative prayer, or any other are merely aids to help you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. The techniques themselves are not the power. The power is in your consciousness, in your ability to assume and persist in a state. Let me share with you a personal experience that illustrates this principle. Many years ago, I desired to travel to Barbados to visit my family, but I lacked the funds to make the journey. Instead of dwelling on my lack of resources, I began to assume the feeling of already being in Barbados. Each night before sleep, I would imagine lying in my familiar bed in my family home in Barbados. I would hear the distinct sound of the palm trees rustling in the Caribbean breeze. I would smell the salt air and feel the warmth of the tropical climate. I persisted in this assumption for several weeks, falling asleep each night in the feeling of already being in Barbados. Then one day I received a letter from my brother in Barbados. Inside the letter was a ticket for passage to Barbados, a gift from my family. The law had worked perfectly. My internal assumption had externalized itself. This is the law, and it never fails. But you must apply it correctly. You must ask from the state of having, not from the state of wanting. You must embody the consciousness of already being what you want to be, already having what you want to have, already experiencing what you want to experience. Now, I want to address a common misconception. Many people believe that they must get rid of all negative thoughts to manifest their desires. This is not true. Thoughts and of themselves do not create reality. It is the feeling, the emotional state, the consciousness that creates reality. You will always have passing thoughts, both positive and negative. The key is not to identify the negative thoughts, not to dwell in them, not to make them your home. Instead, choose deliberately the state you wish to occupy and persist in it despite any contrary thoughts or appearances. This brings me to another important principle, the principle of attention. Whatever you focus your attention on, you energize and manifest in your life. Your attention is like a spotlight. Whatever it illuminates becomes your reality. Therefore, be selective with your attention, directed consciously toward what you want, not toward what you do not want. If you want health, do not give your attention to illness. If you want wealth, do not give your attention to poverty. If you want harmonious relationships, do not give your attention to conflict. This is asking in such a way that the universe cannot say no. I once worked a businessman who was facing financial ruin. His company was on the verge of bankruptcy and all external evidence pointed to an inevitable collapse. I taught him the principle of attention. I told him, do not give life to the bankruptcy by dwelling on it, by talking about it, by feeling the despair of it. Instead, direct your attention to the state of financial prosperity. I instructed him to create a mental scene that implied the financial turnaround of his company. In his imagination, he crafted a scene where his accountant was showing him balance sheets indicating substantial profits. He felt the relief, the joy, the gratitude of this turnaround. He persisted in this mental exercise for several weeks. During this time, an opportunity presented itself that he would have missed had he been focused on bankruptcy. This opportunity led to a partnership that not only saved his company but propelled it to new heights of success. This is the law in operation. By directing his attention to the desired state, by dwelling in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, he asked in such a way that the universe could not say no. I want to underscore that this principle is not about ignoring reality or living in denial. It is about understanding the true nature of reality. The external world is a shadow reflection of internal states. By changing your internal state, you inevitably change the external reflection. Think of it this way. If you are looking at your reflection in a mirror and you do not like what you see, it would be futile to try to change the reflection directly. You must change what is being reflected yourself. Similarly, if you do not like what you see in your world, you must change your concept of yourself, your state of consciousness. This brings me to another crucial aspect of asking in such a way that the universe cannot say no, self-concept. Your self-concept, your idea of who you are, is the foundation of all your manifestations. Everything you experience is a reflection of your concept of yourself. If you see yourself as unworthy, you will manifest experiences that confirm this unworthiness. If you see yourself as a victim, you will manifest experiences of victimization. If you see yourself as powerful, loved, and abundant, you will manifest experiences that confirm these qualities. Therefore, the most fundamental change you can make is to change your concept of yourself. Assume the feeling of being the person you want to be. Live from that assumption. This is asking in such a way that the universe cannot say no. I recall a young actor who came to me discouraged by his lack of success in the film industry. Despite his talent and dedication, he had been unable to secure significant roles. When I inquired about his self-concept, he revealed that he saw himself as a struggling actor, always on the periphery of success. I told him, that is your problem. You are assuming the state of struggle, and the universe is faithfully reflecting back to you that state. You must change your concept of yourself. You must see yourself as a successful actor in demand for major roles. I guided him in constructing a scene that implied his success in the industry. In his imagination, he would read Ruse praising his performance in a major film. He would feel the satisfaction, the pride, the fulfillment of being recognized for his talent. He persisted in this new self-concept for several months. And then, as if by magic, though it was not magic but law, he was called to audition for a significant role in a major production. He secured the role, and his performance was indeed praised by critics, just as he had imagined. This is the law. By changing his concept of himself, he changed his reality. He asked in such a way that the universe could not say no. Now, I want to address a question that often arises. What about collective events or global conditions? Can my individual consciousness affect these? The answer is yes, but with a caveat. Your experience of the collective is still your individual experience. You can only experience what matches your state of consciousness. For instance, in times of economic downturn, some people experience hardship and lack, while others experience opportunity and abundance. Same external condition, different individual experiences because of different states of consciousness. Therefore, do not be concerned with changing the world. Be concerned with changing yourself, your concept of yourself. As you do this, your experience of the world will change. And as more individuals do this, the collective experience changes as well. I want to emphasize that this principle is not selfish or self-centered in a negative sense. It is simply a recognition of the law of consciousness. You cannot give what you do not have. You cannot project what you do not possess within yourself. By focusing on your own state of consciousness, you are actually serving others in the highest way possible by becoming an embodiment of what you wish to see in the world. Let me share with you one final example to illustrate the power of this principle. A woman I knew desired to help the homeless in her community. She volunteered at shelters, donated money and resources, advocated for policy changes, all external actions, coming from a place of compassion, but also from a consciousness of otherness, of separation. Despite her efforts, she felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of the problem and frustrated by the seeming lack of progress. I suggested a different approach. Instead of seeing the homeless as separate from herself, as others to be helped, I advised her to assume the state of consciousness where homelessness was already saw. In her imagination, she created scenes where the once homeless individuals in her community were now living in comfortable homes, engaged in meaningful work, integrated into society. She felt the joy, the relief, the satisfaction of this fulfilled state. As she persisted in this new state of consciousness, something remarkable began to happen. She found herself inspired with new ideas and approaches. She connected with individuals and organizations that shared her vision. Resources that were previously unavailable suddenly materialized. Within a year, her community had implemented innovative solutions that significantly reduced homelessness. Was this a coincidence? No. It was the law in operation. By assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, by asking from the state of fulfillment rather than from the state of lack or problem, she asked in such a way that the universe could not say no. In conclusion, I want to remind you of the core principle we've explored tonight. The universe cannot say no to you when you ask from the state of fulfillment. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, this is the art and the science of effective prayer. Remember, your consciousness is the only reality. What you assume, you become. What you believe, you receive. What you embody, you manifest. The external world is a shadow, a reflection of internal states. Therefore, choose wisely the state you wish to occupy. Dwell in it, live from it. Fall asleep in it, and watch as the universe rearranges itself to reflect back to you your new concept of yourself. The power is within you. It has always been within you. It is your own wonderful human imagination which is God in action. Use it deliberately. Use it lovingly. Use it wisely. When you know how to properly from the state of fulfillment rather than from the state of lack, there is no power in heaven or on earth that can say no to your request. For in truth, you are not requesting anything. You are claiming what is already yours by divine right. Go forth now with this knowledge. Apply it in your daily life. Test it. Prove it to yourself and experience the freedom, the joy, the abundance that is your birthright. Remember always, you are the operant power in your world. You are the author of your life story. You are the God of your universe. Ask from that place of power, from that place of knowing, and the universe cannot, indeed, it will not say no. I thank you for your attention tonight. Blessings upon each and every one of you. May you go forth and create deliberately, consciously, and joyfully. I have shared with you tonight the principle that transcends all religious dogmas, all philosophical systems, all cultural traditions. It is the principle of consciousness, the principle of imagination, the principle of assumption. It is the principle that Jesus taught when he said, "Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours." This principle has been taught by the great spiritual teachers throughout history, though often veiled in symbolism and allegory. Tonight, I have attempted to unveil it, to present it in its naked simplicity, so that you may apply it directly in your life. The great secret is this: the world is yourself pushed out. Everything that you experience is a reflection of your own consciousness. Change your consciousness, and then you change your world. This is asking in such a way that the universe cannot say no. As you leave here tonight, I encourage you to begin immediately to apply this principle. Choose a desire, something that you truly want to be, to have, or to experience. Construct a scene in your imagination that implies the fulfillment of this desire. Enter into the scene. Make it as vivid and as real as possible. Feel the emotions that would be yours if your desire were already fulfilled. Then each night as you go to sleep, replay this scene in your imagination. Fall asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Do this faithfully, persistently, and you will be amazed at how quickly your external reality begins to rearrange itself to match your internal assumption. Remember, the universe responds not to your words, not to your thoughts, but to your state of consciousness, to your feeling state. When you feel that something is real, when you embody the state of its reality, the universe has no choice but to reflect back to you that reality. This is the true meaning of faith. Faith is not belief in the unknown. Faith is the feeling of the known. Faith is the feeling of possession of that which is not yet visible to the senses. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. When you operate from faith, when you live from the end, when you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are asking in such a way that the universe say no. I leave you with this final thought. You are divine. You are God in human form. The power that created and sustains the universe resides within you as your own wonderful human imagination. Use this power consciously. Use it lovingly. And there is nothing that you cannot be, do, or have. Go forth now and create the life of your dreams, for indeed it is your divine right and your divine responsibility to do so. Thank you, and God bless you.